processes and systems, it's definitely top of mind. And I think, one of the things we'll dive into this report, right, is in the last 5 years, how much this has changed and how much it's quickly evolving. We've seen a lot of relaunches of partner programs from the companies on this list. We see now the reporting structure, which, Asher and PL did a great job in collecting this data at these companies, how divergent it is at different companies. And I think that's a reflection of the changing business model. And I think organizations are trying to figure out what is the best way to take this deeply cross-functional, internally and externally, and really make sure that it stays aligned and is working in a way that's orchestrated versus kind of falling into disarray, which is a challenge as platforms grow larger and larger and there's more and more stakeholders. So I think it's a fascinating topic. It definitely impacts me personally on my journey at HubSpot. And I think, to Jay's point, getting some data points is really useful because a lot of times you get echo chambers of opinions, and having kind of a gut check as to whether the market's kind of evolving how you think is always useful.
And Kelly, the other theme for 2024 is we're going to move the echo chamber to an expert chamber this year. We're really going to work hard on delivering some results. So, folks, if you don't know about Partnership Leaders, we exist primarily to support you. We are the private network for channels, alliances, biz dev, and ecosystem professionals and executives. And our goal is to support you becoming a great partner leader and help you with creating impactful partner programs. This is a slide that we showed in December to a number of executives, but I think it's important for you all to also know because you are our stakeholders. And so the companies that are represented in PL have dramatically changed year over year. The regions are coming along pretty nicely, and the roles now represented, especially our focus on executives, is displayed in the pie chart. The other thing to know is we are going to be doing tons of events. Like we did 100 events last year and 10,000 people attended them. We're going to do somewhere between 200 and 300 events this year. And so you'll have plenty of opportunities to discuss this content with your peers, which is one of the reasons why we're building it. So there's a tons of discussion around it. And then you utilize the insights to get more stakeholder alignment and to get more resources to push your programs forward. So I want to take a pause just on this slide because we started this journey with the State of Partner Programs, and the reason why we built the State of Partner Ops and Programs was we felt that there needed to be a resource or team that focused on partner operations to support us, because when this report came out in 2022, we had a lot of partner leaders that were spending a lot of time working with the plumbing of the partner program versus working on revenue generating activities or strategic initiatives. And so we needed to surface that a well-resourced operations function will free up the time for these partner leaders to hire the right people, to continue working on stakeholder alignment, and quite frankly, to deliver results. From there, we went and by the way, the participants in the State of Partner Ops and Programs are primarily partnership leaders and partner folks. And then from there, we said, let's take a look at the same point of view problem from a different lens. And so we launched the State of Partner-Led Growth. The State of Partner-Led Growth allowed us to look at how sales and marketing teams view partnerships and how much are they willing to work with us. And a big insight from that report was sales and marketing teams were willing to give us 25% of their budget if we were able to bring solid business cases to them. We then went into the State of Co-Sell, where we learned that the hyperscalers, as we call them, or the cloud service providers, they have access to over 500,000 different businesses. Collectively, they have tens of thousands of sales reps that we have to build relationships with and get the co-sell motion going. That report also allowed us to understand when we send opportunities to the cloud service providers, how long does it take for them to start sending us opportunities back. And then we started focusing on relationship selling, which was really a slightly more tactical view of the co-sell report, and it went into the tech stack that you need. And then we landed with the state of partner experience, which helped us understand the journey that partners are on. Because in 2022, we were all talking about partners' impact on the entire customer cycle, but the data points on what partners actually need to be able to do that were missing, and that report covers those data points. And then in December, we launched the Chief Partner Officer report because thanks to Microsoft and SAP for launching the Chief Partner Officer role, we said there needs to be a report in the marketplace that looks at describing the situation of why this role exists and what are some of the things needed to be successful in a role like that. Now, I put this disclaimer out there. While we are championing the Chief Partner Officer role, it's really up to you all to take this role on and fight for it and get yourself resourced so that you can go and create a much bigger impact and have a strategic seat at that C-suite table, and which then led us to this report, which is the state of platforms. And so I know I said a bunch, but I wanted to give you all the context for all these reports and then land us over here, which is, give me one sec, I'll bring the report up. Alrighty, and I've just shared all the links to all of the other reports that I mentioned in the chat window. So download them, use them, get more resources, and then let us know so we can celebrate your success. All right, let's go take a look at the State of Platforms report. To be honest, this report took us much longer than we had originally thought, primarily because we needed to gather a lot of data. And so there was two parts of gathering data. One was understanding how, the top 50 software companies and how they, if they have marketplaces, and if they don't have marketplaces, then what are they doing? If they do have marketplaces, what's listed on them? But then the other part was understanding the roles of the highest the highest levels of partnership leaders in their companies and where they report to. And so a lot of work went into gathering these org charts. And I'm actually very proud of this because we utilized PL as a tool and the network to get these connections made. Even though I'm at the top of leading PL, I don't have all the connections that you might imagine. And so we utilized partnership leaders, the network, to gather this data. And it didn't take us long to gather this data once we had figured out what we were looking for and who to ask. And so it just speaks volumes to the network that we've all created with partnership leaders. Let me pause and see if, Kelly, do you want to add anything to taking this report off?
No, I think that lays the groundwork nicely. And I think the org chart data, to your point, is extremely valuable. It's something people pay a large amount of money to other people to access it. So it is a testament to you and the PL network that you're able to track that down.
All right.
I'll say something just to kick off. This is becoming a much larger deal. We talk about software, we talk about SaaS, which as a category last year drove $215 billion in revenue. But this is a bigger deal, and companies like McKinsey, who consult with the Fortune 500 in all 27 industries at the board CEO level, are actively in this conversation at the moment. So it doesn't matter if you're a pharmaceutical company, a bank, an insurance company, automotive. Every company in every industry is becoming a tech company. All of them look north at Microsoft out-taking Apple last week as the most valuable company on the planet. And what platform economies are And it doesn't matter what business you're in, what industry you're in, every company is looking at the SaaS software market and to see how trillion-dollar players have been created in a platform economy, and then taking this back and rethinking their economies, rethinking their industries. And so this isn't just a $200 billion how to win in SaaS type of report. It goes much larger than that. It goes into consumer, it goes into B2B. And if you listen to McKinsey, it'll make up a material part of world trade, which was the GDP last year of $105 trillion. So that's why I'm so excited about this, and some of the numbers and insights that came out of this apply to everyone and all of our customers as they rethink their businesses.
I just want to flag something too that I think I've seen a lot in tech, right? Is like, what is a platform, and what is the difference between a platform business model and a technical platform? And I think the introduction to this report really lays it out. But just for the people listening right now, I think there's still this association, platforms only ISVs, and maybe it's only the marketplace, but actually the platform business model is much broader than that. Anytime someone is facilitating exchanges of value between three parties. So a shopping mall is actually a platform, right? It's not what we think of when we say it. Uber is a platform. And I think that understanding the dynamics of how that business model works, and then the layer that's gone on top of it in technology, which is this technical platform where people can build on top of the platform itself, introduces a whole new layer of complexity. But I think it's important to understand that core function of a platform and why it works and why it drives value for our participants is really important, and it's kind of laid out here in the intro very, I think, cleanly, so that people can go into the rest of the data in the report with that perspective.
Yeah, and the economics of platforms is what we talk about here. And I'll talk about cars for a minute. This is we would all recognize 63 major car manufacturers as platforms. But they're looking at a 20-year future in their industry. It's about a $4 trillion industry. That the economics or the profit of that industry could be removed in a platform economy. And if the car isn't the platform, if 79% of people won't buy a car unless it has Apple CarPlay, and big tech takes over the driving experience in front of the driver, the batteries, the motors, everything below the driver is also platform. The companies themselves become sheet metal companies. So this is what's keeping them up at night. And these are the boardroom conversations right now, is the ownership of this platform, that flywheel at the top here, and how to continue to take economic value at a scale out of an industry is at risk, grave risk at this point. In that industry, we could have different conversations about different industries like banking and insurance, everything else, but it all comes down to this. And this is why they're looking at this area so strongly, is really the future of their industries are in jeopardy as they become tech companies in terms of who's going to have that layer of gravity in front of the customer.
So as I was going to signing up for this project, one of the questions that I had in my mind was, we talked a lot about the different types of partners working together, and then that's where the ecosystem thinking comes into play, right? And then we spend a lot of time on like co-selling and co-marketing, but then this platform thinking or this business model actually surfaces the co-building aspects of the ecosystem. And then once the co-building is done, then there's the co-monetizing, and marketplaces offer a path to that. But the overarching question that I had in my mind was, hey, how do all of these partners come and work together? And as we went through this research, it became very clear that the marketplace or marketplaces actually bring the partners together to and they become a unifying agent to then go build and set market and sell and serve together. So later in the report, we'll go into this topic a little bit more, but it was very illuminating for me to see that how you can use a marketplace. So I always thought a marketplace as just like, hey, you list your product and then something happens there, but they are much more powerful in bringing your ecosystem together than just a listing of your tool or a transaction point.
Yeah, one of the areas the report did a really good job and does a really good job of is kind of splitting up, app marketplaces versus services and what that means. But the one major trend that we're facing kind of as a world economy is the recognition, especially in B2B, of how much a transaction is worth. We know in B2C, when we go buy something with our credit card, we know that there's a 3% fee that the vendor pays, and we kind of understand that there's 17 companies, financial companies in Wall Street that kind of make a little slice of that, and with Visa or MasterCard or somebody on the front end of it. But with all the marketplaces now charging 3% fees, as of AWS a few weeks ago was the third and final to do that. Microsoft was first. But as the transaction in B2B comes down to 3%, the whole history of resell changes. It's not 10%, it's not 20%, it's not 30%. It's not the way we thought of the economics of partnering. So what we're thinking about now is, beyond the transactional value, which, an ecosystem can drive, reducing friction for that buyer, what are all the other things? The average customer has 7 partners they trust. And up until now, for 43 years, we've only really been able to measure that one partner who collected their money on behalf of a vendor at that point of sale.
Yep.
But now we have hundreds of companies helping these companies measure all these other partner points of value to say that, partnering may still be worth 30% in a transaction, but we're going to pay it out at a very detailed level, before the point of sale, at the point of sale, and beyond the point of sale, as everybody's in now a subscription consumption business every 30 days forever. And this whole economics underneath this is really the interesting part of this, and it's exposing to customers really what the value and how much that value is worth in a platform economy.
Solid point. Also interesting that we're discussing this topic, and you have the reason why those chief partner officers were appointed was to actually bring the co-building and co-serving resources closer to the co-selling and co-marketing resources that they already have purview over, right? And Jay, you talked about this, I think even like 2 years ago, where you were like, hey, there will be a time when there will be partner leaders who will need to look at look holistically, and I know back then holistically at the entire partnering function. And back then we used to draw org charts on napkins and post them on LinkedIn to get discussions, the debates going. But that's actually happening right now. The chief partner officers that are appointed are responsible for bringing the co-building and the co-serving mechanisms under their purview, so that they can holistically look at it. Look at driving partner the impact of driving impact, and marketplaces become part of their charter.
One measure that I remind myself every quarter to go update is on LinkedIn. How many people have ecosystem in their title? And to me, that's a little bit of a bellwether for owning both the resell, then the non-transacting, the co-sell, the co-marketing, the co-keeping, the co-innovation, the co-development type of partners all under one, that unified, kind of ecosystem. And now we have 15,000 people at a leadership level with it in their title. And we have 864,000 people who use the word ecosystem to describe what they do on LinkedIn. And that comes from literally a number of 0, other than some people in agriculture, Brazilian rainforest that used to call themselves ecosystem people. That number continues to grow every quarter. And then it all finalizes in this chief partner officer. And this report has some great statistics on, obviously who they report to, what the organization looks like, how many resources they have. It's the first to dig in at this level of granularity to go in and figure out what that organizational structure looks like and who these people are and what their skills are and how they lead what they do. But this idea of an ecosystem, which really Partnership Leaders was on the front edge of when it began, which is really 2 things. It's the reselling aspect, which 75% of world trade flows through indirect third-party channels, and non-transactional. All the other things that 6 or 7 partners that customer trusts do every day to add value. That inclusiveness of all of that comes back to a platform economy. And this is really the first guide to show the data underneath it. But really the kind of the secret sauce of what these top 50 companies do every day, like HubSpot, to drive leadership and incredible work for their investors, their shareholders, to drive this. And the stuff that Kelly does every day, I'm in awe of in terms of creating shareholder value, which is really in capitalism the only goal. That's literally the only goal of a company, is to drive shareholder value.
Just a few more data points before I hand it over to Kelly to walk us through the contents and how this report is architected. There are, as of Jan 1, and we'll put this data out monthly, there are 813 people who either are chief partner officers or identify as chief partner officers, and it's in their titles, compared to 5,200 chief customer officers and many more chief revenue and chief marketing officers. The interesting piece is I looked at this with Scott Salkin, who's been at Gainsight for a while. 10 years ago, I think there were like 200 chief customer officers. And so they worked hard to drive the change and impact inside their organizations because they believed in customer success. And that's the world that they created for themselves. And so that's the opportunity in front of us too, with this data insight, that we drive, at least in the short term, we've got to drive that 813 number to 2,000 so that we can then join the ranks of our other go-to-market leader colleagues. And this data and the impact that this platform business model has will help us get to that point. So Kelly, walk us through how you set this report up.
Well, I think the report is divided into 2 sections with having first, I say 3, the introduction, which kind of goes through these principles of what is the economic model here at play, what does it look like from the bird's eye view, and then the market and data insights is the data on these questions that Jay's been discussing in terms of are people using ecosystem titles? Are they using channel? Are they using partnerships? How do those things correlate together? Ecosystems is still the smaller of the 3, but the data also showed us the larger the company, the more ecosystem people they had, and it went up significantly. So I think there's a lot of data on the chief partner officer. Only 10% of these companies have a chief partner officer, and one of those is actually a chief channel. So I think that it's new, right? These are the largest ecosystems for the most part, and looking to see what they're doing is very valuable to see where the industry is probably going and where the leading practices are. Then we also got contributions from executives, people who are really leaders in the space and doing this or consulting on this, and they kind of shared their point of view on different topics.
Super. And folks, we even have Nate Ray, who actually is more of a B2C chief partner officer. His contribution to this report focused on co-building, and we'll walk through a little bit of that. So Kelly, why don't we do this? Why don't we walk people through the key takeaways of each section, and then I think that would be a good tee up, and then we can give them the link to download the report, and then we can wrap up. Here is a view of the number of apps in the 50 largest software companies' app marketplaces. The data showed that the average is 1,498, while 357 being the median.
Yeah, I think that this page actually even a little bit more interesting. I think we all know these larger companies all have very large ISV ecosystems, but if you go to the next page, Asher, I think it shows even when you're, and keeping in mind these top 50 companies are basically ranked by revenue. I think that you can see even as you go up within this top 50 and you get larger and larger, you just see more and more partners.
Super. interesting that the service partners are now brought in to deliver this, get the last mile consulting done on these apps. And let's talk about this chart. So the number of apps in the 20 largest companies' app marketplaces, as Kelly was talking about, there's 2,138 on average, and 1,014 was the median that we found.
Yeah, and I think that you can see too is like some of them don't actually have that many, right? Some of them might have a couple hundred or 300, and this section really breaks down why that might be. And in those cases, usually you're going to see a bunch of services partners who are doing the custom work that's required. You'll see this in health industries, financial industries, where data is highly regulated and you can't reach the same level of interoperability that you can in, say, marketing and sales software. Once you have that extra layer of compliance, the other thing is when you have these highly bespoke legacy systems or ERPs where you just don't have, someone's going to have to do a lot of custom work to get where the company needs to go. And so in those ecosystems, you're going to see fewer tech partners and you're going to see more services partners who are providing the custom work. But conversely, in these ecosystems where you can have thousands of app partners, maybe 10,000, you will also see services partners because those services partners can service those apps, which is those cross-ecosystem plays we've been talking about, and also provide custom work. Because if you have 10,000 apps, it means the platform is highly interoperable and has a whole suite of APIs, other components. They probably hosting things. Services partners can do that for an infinite number of use cases for customers. So the flywheel in that case really can spin off together as well. But I do think that shows not all of the top 50 companies have large tech ecosystems. Some of them, it depends what you mean by large, but some of them have a couple hundred or a few hundred tech partners, and those are ones that are in financial services or healthcare.
There's actually a point of marketplaces that's actually consistent or congruent with actual platforms. And if you look in any product category, you look at any industry, there's always a sense of leadership. If you go back to Jack Welch in the GE days, he was famous for saying, if I'm not number one or number two in what I do, whether it's building nuclear turbines or selling light bulbs, we're exiting the business. The platform economy has expanded that number, but not by much. If you're going to buy a CRM tool today, you could argue maybe there's 3 platforms. Marketing automation, with the early rise of Eloqua and Marketo and Pardot, and then HubSpot, the group of 4. But if you go through the 2,200 SaaS categories, we could talk about the ServiceNows, the Workdays, talk about the NetSuites, this gravity. And there's a sense of scale and economies of scale that come with this. There's a good reason why there's 3 hyperscalers. And companies, huge companies like Oracle and IBM, can't crack that top 3 is a sense of gravity. When you're a large distributor, for example, setting up a marketplace, you can't go knock on the door of the tens, hundreds, and then soon to be millions of companies that should be in the marketplace. It has to be in reverse. There's gravity. There's a reason that Amazon beat Walmart is that long tail. There's books written about it. The everything store from A to Z. The fact is that we know when we go to Amazon that they have what we need, and they probably have 12 versions of it from good to better to best. The fact of the matter is the winning marketplaces, the largest marketplaces and the largest platforms win. And so when we looked at this and we looked at the tens of thousands of marketplaces that are out there, right from the very niche to the very large, 20 marketplaces total will account for 80% of the entire marketplace revenue and share that's out there. So this battle to be big, the battle for the long tail, the battle to have the 7 average things that a customer buys when they buy HubSpot, or when they buy Salesforce, or when they buy AWS, the ability to have all 7 things on the marketplace and the right services and everything wrapped around it is paramount. You can't have 5 of them and send the customer to go transact the other 2 some other way and to wrap services a different way. the expectation of a platform, the expectation of a platform marketplace from both apps, services, integrations, and everything is all in one place.
I think the other interesting thing about this report, and we go through a bunch of examples around both the app marketplaces and service marketplaces, and just quite frankly, just things that were listed, is how many of these marketplaces were not transactional, and we'll come to that in a sec. Let's review this section. So the key takeaways from this section were that over half of the companies have a separate marketplace and services marketplace, and almost a third of the top companies have a unified marketplace. Almost 15% do not have a services marketplace at all, compared to 2% who lack an app marketplace. And Kelly, do you want to wrap this section up before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I think, to Jay's point, the more that business goes through marketplaces, the more that platforms are using it as the way to seamlessly facilitate transactions, the more investment is beginning given into marketplaces as a product, which is already happening, right? And I think that the unified versus not unified, it was interesting to see a pretty solid divergence here, but it's all about the customer journey and the partner journey and what is going to make it easiest for the customer to connect with all the solutions they need the most seamlessly. And for some people right now, they think the answer is to have one marketplace where you can find the services and you can find the apps. I think where the real work and evolution is going to be is better suggestions and better ability to get recommendations, AI. We have Peter Evans in here, who's really a marketplace expert, and his contribution really breaks down what does a deep marketplace look like and what are those features. And I think we've seen more on the B2C side than we have on the B2B, but I think AWS obviously is heavily investing in this. I think other marketplaces are going to be using these smart features so that the marketplace better connects the customer with the partner, but also continues to generate value for more partners. So I think it's really interesting and definitely in a state of evolution. I would say that when you look at these B2B marketplaces in this bucket of these 50 companies, in general, they're nowhere near as sophisticated as they could be.
Yeah, I think this is a point in time as well. I mean, we're early in the marketplace journey. These things will become unified. And there's a reason, because every platform in every industry has a multiplier. For every dollar of whatever product is acquired from the platform company, there's other dollars available in additional hardware, software, services. If you're in the tech industry, for example, at HubSpot, that's $5.80 for every dollar of HubSpot. For Salesforce, it's $6.19. For Microsoft, it's $7.63. For AWS, it's $6.40. But suffice it to say, a customer has an entire set of hundreds of services that they can choose to insource or outsource as part of that multiplier. No one's going to outsource all $6, but you're going to look at every single one of the services. Who's going to do consulting, design, architecture, implementation, integration, all through all the major services, and go, we're better equipped to do that. No, we're going to get help for that. Here's where, and today it's 2-1, by the way. The actual results of the tech industry last year, $5 trillion industry, there's $2 of services that are sold for every dollar of hardware and software. But that's in a bigger multiplier of $6. So that's just saying that the customer today is insourcing $4 or 4x and outsourcing 2x. So take HubSpot's revenue, multiply that by 2. That's the actual last year's services. And then multiply it by 6, and that's the potential services that a partner. But all of that has to come together in the marketplace, and it has to come under enterprise credits. So customers have already given, in terms of future credits, over $300 billion to these larger marketplaces to sit as dry powder. And the marketplaces are allowing them to extinguish those credits either by buying more of their product, if you're AWS, for example, or the extra software and services, the 7-layer stack that's going to solve your problem, and all the services around it, all can be extinguished with those future commits. And so this is just an interesting economy right now when we're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars that are already there, and the customer wants the ability to acquire everything they need to get that outcome that they're looking for. And one of the conclusions of this report was, this is becoming an outcome-based world, and a platform and a marketplace and all the different parts and pieces drive that outcome in one place.
Yeah, to just add to that, Jay, if I'm a partner leader in the audience, right, I have two views now, right? I am thinking that yes, I do need to go get listed and start transacting on the public marketplaces that the cloud service providers and everybody else is putting on. But is the call out for me to think about building a marketplace for my own company as well? And I know you're doing some research in the partner tech that is being developed to make it easy for people to stand up their own marketplaces. So what's your point of view on the partner leaders taking this back and challenging their internal teams to go create marketplaces for themselves?
Well, I mean, there's two parts of it. When I said that 20 marketplaces are going to drive 80% of the revenue,
yep,
you've got to go and play in those marketplaces.
Yep. Yeah, that part is visible there.
So Tupperware went bankrupt this year because they didn't play in Amazon. Very simple. They weren't at Target. They weren't at Amazon. They had to kind of make a channel play for a direct company since the start of time. So almost every industry has these examples. You've got to go play where the money's being spent and where the future credits are. So the question, though, internally is, would our customers benefit from our own niche marketplace? Maybe it's a highly regulated industry, maybe it's a highly regulated geography. There's a whole bunch of layers to it that just going out to a major Microsoft marketplace may not work. I actually have to come in and tighten up from hundreds of thousands of choices. I have to build the 7-layer stack that's compliant, in my world, that is true, tried and proven in my world, and has the partners who have deep resumes to go make that happen. So I can't be out there, kind of putting pieces and parts together without understanding. So that's it. Can we build a niche marketplace? And would we have the capability, depending on what category you're in, to become a platform one day? Is our category that we're in and the buyer that we sell to, is it immature to the point that we could become a HubSpot? And go and get that level of value, stakeholder value in our category. And should we be thinking at this point over the next decade to go build and do what HubSpot did 10 years ago? Put the forethought and hire really smart people like Kelly and Scott and others, do all those necessary things to build $30 billion of shareholder value. And that's just the internal question. Do we do that or we don't? Do we put those resources in place? Does it benefit the outcome? Does it benefit our customer? Is enough of our market TAM in a niche enough space? And are we capable of becoming a platform ourselves? That's kind of the future. Security in 2024 is going through this question right now. 6,500 cybersecurity companies, 40 plus years old as an industry. They're all tool makers at this point. But big acquisitions are being made. Cisco, Splunk, Microsoft's growing, Palo Alto, Fortinet, CrowdStrike, Zscaler. All these companies now are framing up to what that 5-layer platform is going to be. And the 6,500 security companies are going to go up a level and participate in those platforms, in those marketplaces, in this economy. And all boats rise. Kind of like the 13,080 marketing and ad tech companies, MarTech and AdTech, joined HubSpot and joined others to participate in the platform to their benefit.
Yeah, I think it's important to call out too is platforms need to be in other platforms' marketplaces often, right? Like Salesforce just joined AWS, TBD on how well that's going to work, given that the traditional buyer of AWS was different than the traditional buyer of Salesforce, but AWS is moving into business line software. They want them to come on their marketplace. So in some ways, a lot of these marketplaces, Adobe has a marketplace, Salesforce, SAP has a marketplace. doesn't in any way drive as much business for them as their channel and other partners and service partners, but those tools are going to go into other marketplaces and sometimes vice versa. So adopting different roles and different ecosystems is kind of going to be par for the course, and figuring out exactly what your strategy is and what you can build and how much you want to invest in it versus how much you want to go invest in leveraging someone else's platform. Those are going to be tough business decisions that people are going to have to really analyze.
So because I'm super passionate about elevating the partner leader, right? The partner leader mindset is, I am now the indirect revenue optimizer, right? And so on one hand, I have to list on the public, let's say the cloud marketplaces, and there's an element of me being cloud sales ready, right? That I have to prepare my organization for. And then on the other side, I want to create a technology platform where people build on me so that, or build on my technology so that they can capture the workflows and help not just me become stickier, but also fulfill their own value proposition. So there's two things that that leader has to think about as I'm like capturing what Jay is saying and Kelly, what you're saying, and thinking about where the 400 like executives that are in PL are today. And so the role and the nature of the job changes to push the business to, one, be cloud sales ready, and then two, also think about extensibility. And I wish Scott was here. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here. But he's going to talk a lot about being ready for building on platforms, and he's been doing a lot of work on behind the scenes at HubSpot. And maybe we do a different session for him to again walk us through all the hard work he's been putting in place. But yes, so if you're a partner leader, you are an indirect revenue optimizer, just like the CRO is the direct revenue optimizer. And so you have to think about both the help build apps so that you can further extend your value proposition, but help your partners lock in workflows, and then and on the other side, be cloud sales ready. And I've been doing some work on just this cloud sales ready portion, and we will share some of that info in the next couple of weeks. But there's like steps that you have to take to really get that motion going, and it's not as easy as it looks like. And I know there's a bunch of success stories out there for the vast majority. There's like specific steps you can take to be cloud sales ready, and we'll talk more about that in the next couple of weeks. Kelly, anything on? Sorry, go ahead, Jay. Did you?
I was just going to say that there's a wonderful conversation going on in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. We got tech companies in here. We got lots of great contrarian views. I'll pick up on one of them, though. Is you talk about partnership leaders, and if we get tactical for a second, what do we walk away in 2024? The first thing we're trying to do is monitor, measure, and manage non-transactional moments. There's hundreds of them, before, during, and after the transaction. So somebody made a comment that the VAR, is kind of getting replaced by this marketplace, but losing value to the customer. The point is the value added part of the reseller is a different category that should be compensated inside the marketplace. Yeah. So collecting the customer's money is worth 3%. But for that VAR, who's also consulting and designing, they're doing the configurations, the pricing, the quoting, they're probably installing. In the past, they've given away that all for free because they've earned all their money at the point of sale, which covered the cost of all the other value-added services. The point of the multiplier is that doesn't exist anymore. The customer knows that collecting money is worth 3%. And if that VAR wants to make 10 or 20%, they have to recognize and demonstrate those value to the point where the vendor will put that money to a private offer because they've literally saved SG&A from that vendor. They've done the marketing, they've done the selling, they've done the engineering. That vendor might have won the deal in their sleep. There's a significant cost savings to doing that. And if they earn a customer for life, the value of that gets translated through a marketplace. It doesn't get replaced by that. So that's just to that comment. But number one, the monitoring, measuring, managing these hundreds of non-transactional moments. There's hundreds of entrepreneurs, many of them here in the comments, talking about new ways of doing that. Partnership leaders have to be aggressive piloting these type of things in 2024, number one. Number two, figuring out your go-to-market, your routes to market. how much of your market TAM, your service available and service obtainable markets today are in marketplaces. They're growing at 86%. If you're in security, for example, you now have 3 or 4 companies talking about billion-dollar businesses through one marketplace. AWS, the CrowdStrikes, the Zscalers, Okta, Snowflake is over $1 billion in AWS. So how much of your market TAM is there? And how much do you need to execute starting today in 2024 so you're serving your customer in all the places that they're looking to buy? And are you looking at that $300 billion of future commits and figuring out how much of that is in your space? What is the growth? And you need to be there. That's the second most important thing. And then third is programmatically making sure that whether your customer buys indirect, kind of 2-tier the way they might have in the past, whether they buy direct or whether they buy through a marketplace, it really doesn't matter. There's 7 partners that are trusted. Those partners can be helping you or creating friction. And within your gross to nets, your front or back end margins within your program, you've got to be making sure that whatever way the customer ends up buying, you're supporting those partners with financial means to go do what they do and do more of what they do in your favor. And that's the point where we go into 2024 now. Let's stop trying to figure out for the customer what's best for them. They're going to land and spend their money where they want to. But we're always going to recognize the 7 partners that surround them and understand 95%, 97% of the value sits outside of somebody collecting somebody's money.
Well said. And there's another topic around just the partner leaders owning these platforms and marketplaces and not I'll send the link to the Chief Partner Officer report, but we actually examine how a CRO became a CRO. And back in the day, CROs did not own marketing, and then they started owning marketing, and then they're now, in a lot of cases, they're actually removing marketing from the CRO's remit and making them the CSO. The goal here is, like Jay said, let's do what's best for the company and for the customer, and then drive change, right? So today we're talking about the Chief Partner Officer owning all partnering functions, but there is, to another comment in the chat around the Chief Strategy Officer or Chief Business Officer roles. There are roles that combine platforms, partnerships, and corp dev together. I think the big thing that we need to focus on is, again, how do we drive impact and how do we drive revenue? And if we can build business cases around taking ownership of a part of the company and then making sure that it drives revenue efficiently, I believe that the work that we're all doing in the land of partnerships will get us to becoming responsible for these other functions. In this section of the report, we actually go into detail around what the Chief Partner Officer role looks like, the formation of the role, the highest ranking partnership leaders, and where do they report to. There's actually I'll pause on this chart because I know we're going to run out of time. But in the Kelly, do you want to talk a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, I think it was super interesting to see how close are they to the CEO, right? You have companies that are very partner first and have a unified partner leader. They're still not in the CEO's even executive team, which was kind of shocking to me. I think that when you look at the very top companies on this list, SAP stands out. They were unusual in that their Chief Partner Officer does report directly to the CEO. Having said that, what we saw is the unified partner leaders were more likely to be reporting to, say, a president or something broad like a chief commercial officer or a COO. While when they were broken up, they were more likely to be reporting just to sales or to product, right? So there's a logic there that makes sense, but it is interesting to see that there is, and marketing has gone through the same problem. You were talking about the CRO, the CMO has the same situation. There's a very mixed bag for CMOs, whether they're in the executive leader team or they're a couple steps outside of it. And I think that what we're seeing with partnerships, it's still kind of a mixed bag on how close they actually are, regardless of their title.
the call out is we need to fight for what we deserve, right? And if we think we deserve, we need to prepare, show the impact, and we can get there because other functions actually went through the same evolution. Okay, so we go into a little bit more detail around reporting structure and whether the partner leader owns all the different partner types or not. I do believe that in a world where the programs are becoming outcome-based, the partner types won't exist. And so if the remit of the leader is to drive sales or to drive pipeline or to drive success or to go build, that they would actually start owning the different partner types, and then it'll just be a matter of owning more functions along the partner's journey. We go into number and type of employees working in partnerships compared to sales and marketing. And then ultimately we land on the average percentage of employees in the largest software companies that are in these specific roles. Now, to another point that was made in the chat, there are different ways we talk about ourselves. Partnership leaders' viewpoint is that we just use the word partnerships because it's existed forever, and it does bring all the different types of partnering activities together, and it's actually literally it's very literal in the word to describe the function, and so that's what we are pushing, and we're going to continue to push forward in the marketplace.
Yeah, one interesting thing, so this is based on LinkedIn data, so it's as good as LinkedIn's ability to scrape and analyze profiles. But what was interesting is that for the most part, if somebody was labeled with channel, that LinkedIn would also pick them up as partnerships. If someone was labeled as ecosystems, they'd also be picked up as partnerships. Not true of ecosystems and channel. There was a much wider discrepancy between people labeled on channel and people labeled on ecosystem, which that's kind of what I would have predicted. And I think the other thing that is interesting about that data is as the companies get larger, you do see the percentage going up of employees, especially in ecosystem. That one had the largest jump up in terms of the percentage of employees.
So the key takeaways here is that unified partner leaders oversee all partner types at organization, and 64% of the top 50, and in 89% of the top 9, there is unified partner leader. That is the direction we want to head into so that we can create a well-funded, well-resourced partnering function inside of companies. Jay and Kelly, any closing remarks? Because I know we're about 3 minutes to the close of the session.
I'll just quickly say, I think invite everyone to check out the report. I think there's a lot of timely and interesting data here on a business model that is just going to continue to be evolving as we go on in the next couple of years. And I think there's a huge amount of business impact, and I assume most people in here are in partnerships trying to make this happen within their own organizations. And this is a really valuable tool to understanding the dynamics and how you can leverage them for your own company's growth.
Yeah, for me, I think this is an industry inflection point. It might even be bigger than Gen AI as an inflection point in our industry. So, for those of you that are, tracking, for example, Microsoft overtaking Apple last week as the world's most valuable company, I don't think there's too many analysts that are deep into this that think Microsoft has a product advantage, a price advantage, a promotional advantage. Obviously, they have place in the 500,000 partners they have, but it's a platform advantage. College kids are going to learn about the 5th P, about creating incredible shareholder value, which is platforms. This is the first report that's ever gone through the first 50 and counted a bunch of things that have never been counted before, and really put a mark in the sand at where we are in this level of maturity and how fast this marketplace platform economy is growing. And I think all of us here, the hundreds of us here, are at the forefront of this conversation. And for the next decade, for the next 2 decades, wherever you work and whatever industry you work in, this is what's going to drive the world forward.
Super. So folks, as we wrap up, we'll definitely do another session. We'll get Mr. Brinker on to talk a little bit about all the heavy lifting he's been doing on building the platform capabilities of HubSpot. There is a educational piece that we'll put out between partnership leaders and WorkSpan on cloud sales readiness in the next couple of weeks. And then later in Q1, we will issue the State of Partnership Leaders, which goes into benchmarking around how salaries and like team sizes and like roles and all those different things. And so Q1, you're going to have lots of